Hello, so in this video we're going to look at doing some chapter 6 Stoichiometry examples. So first, our question is to determine the number of grams of sulfur present in each of the following quantities. Question A asks us to take 6.98 times 10 to the 23rd S2O molecules 2 grams of sulfur. So for part A, the first thing that I would do is I would try to find the molar mass of sulfur SO2. So S2O, we know we have 2 of sulfur in with a mass of 32.06 plus 1 oxygen, which is 16. And it gives us a mass of 80.12 grams per mole of S2O. So we have our molar mass, and now we want to get this equation, or this number, into grams of sulfur. So if we start with our given, so we have 6.98 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of S2O. And we know that we would use Avogadro's number, so we would use 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of S2O is 1 mole of S2O. And so we know that our molecules will cancel. Then we want to take it from moles to moles of sulfur. So we know that the ratio is 1 to 2. So we can see in our chemical formula for S2O, for every 1 mole of oxygen, there are 2 moles of sulfur. So 1 mole of oxygen is equal to 2 moles of sulfur in this equation. So we will put 1 mole of SO2 is equal to 2 moles of sulfur. So now that we have it in moles of sulfur, we can put it in grams to end our equation. So if we use 1 mole of sulfur is equal to the molar mass, so 32.06 grams of sulfur. So if we go back, we can see that our molecules will cancel, our moles will cancel again, and we're left in grams of sulfur. So if we plug it into a calculator, we will find that our answer is 74.34511, and we can round it to 2 decimals with our significant figures like we used in our molar mass. So our answer will be 74.35 grams of sulfur. So for our next one, we are given there are 8 molecules of S4N4, and we want to take it to grams of sulfur. So I would look to find your molar mass, is what I would do first. So we look at our molar mass. We know that we have 4 sulfurs with a mass of 32.06 plus our nitrogen, which has a mass of 14.00, and we have 4 of those. And so our molar mass would equal 184.24 grams per mole of S4N4. So if we look at solving this equation, so we know that we're given at 8.0 molecules of S4N4, and we want to end in grams of sulfur. So we know that in order to cancel molecules, we would need to use Avogadro's number, because if you remember that the units for are 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, or for Avogadro's number, being particles, atoms, molecules, or formula units. So if we want to cancel our molecules, we would need to use Avogadro's number, 0.6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of S4N4, and that would equal 1 mole of S4N4. So in this equation, in the last equation, we found that 1 mole of oxygen is present in 2 moles of sulfur. So for this equation, we can look at it and see that for every 4 moles of sulfur, there are 4 moles of nitrogen. But we're using S4N4, so in 1 mole of S4N4, there are present of 4 moles of sulfur. So we want this N4 to cancel, S4N4 to cancel, or to get rid of it, so we can put it in sulfur, units of sulfur. So for 1 mole of S4N4, we have 4 moles of S. And to cancel moles, we know we can use 1 mole is equal to the molar mass. So 1 mole of sulfur is equal to 32.06 grams of sulfur. And if that is plugged into your calculator, you will get 1.704 times 10 to the negative 21st grams of sulfur. So in C, we want to take 3.48 moles of S2O to 2 grams of sulfur. So first, I would do the molar mass. So we know that the molar mass, so we have 1 sulfur with a mass of 32.06 plus 2 oxygens with a mass of 16, which will give you a mass of 64.06 grams per mole of SO2. So if we look at solving this equation, we know that we want to cancel moles and then go to sulfur, grams of sulfur. So we have 3.48 moles of SO2 and you remember what we saw in the last one where if we have, so in this equation, looking at our chemical formula, for 1 mole of sulfur, we have 2 moles of oxygen. So if we look at the overall equation, for 1 mole of SO2, we have 2 moles of oxygen. So if we want to cancel moles first of SO2, we can do 1 mole of SO2 is equal to 1 mole of S, of sulfur. So 1 mole of sulfur is equal to 32.06 grams of sulfur. And when you plug that into your calculator, you will get 111.5688, or you could round it to 111.57 grams of sulfur. So in this one, we're looking at 5.16 moles of S8 and we want to end in grams of sulfur. So we know that the molar mass of sulfur is 32.06, and S8 for a molar mass would equal 256.48 grams per mole of sulfur 8. So if we look at our equation, so we look at solving it, we want our moles to cancel first. So we know that we have 1 mole of S8 is equal to 8 moles of sulfur. So we have 1 mole of S8 is equal to 8 moles of sulfur. So if we look at canceling moles to end in grams, we know that 1 mole of sulfur is equal to 32.06 grams of sulfur. And if you plug that into your calculator, you will get 1323.4368 grams of sulfur, and you can round it to 1323.44 grams of sulfur.